of this lesson is to learn the basic built-in types of Python variables. Let's start with imagining that we are going to ask 4 questions from a person. Our first question is, how many children do you have? Our second question is, how much do you weigh in kilograms? Our third question is, what is your name? And our last question is, are you happy? Now, what kind of answer do we get? Let's imagine that the answer to the first question is, I have 3 children. I weigh 75.6 kilograms. My name is Jeff. And yes, I'm happy. It is true. You can immediately notice that the answers to these questions are of different types. For example, when you ask a person that how many children do you have, they cannot say 2.5 children or 2.5 children. They can only give you an integer number. And when you ask them about their weight, they say something like 75.6. And when you ask about the name, they will tell you a string of characters. Their name cannot be a number. And of course, when you ask them about, are you happy? The only answer is yes or no, or true or false. So these are different types of variables. For example, the first one is an integer that in Python is identified by int. The second one is called a floating point number. And the next one is a string of characters. And in Python, its symbol is str. And the last one is a Boolean type, which basically means there's only 2 possible answers of yes or no, or true or false. So let's start with the variable type int. Imagine we type a statement in Python which says x is equal 3 plus 5. What happens? Python calculates the right side of the equal sign, puts the result in a memory location, associates that location with the identifier x, in other words, gives a name to that location, and since the result of the right side is an integer, the type of this variable will be int. Notice that Python now has a variable such that the identifier for this variable is x. You can also say the name of a variable is x, and sometimes people just say I have a variable x. The value of the variable is 8 and the type of the variable is int. Let's open the Python IDLE and look at an example. I'm going to say x is equal 3 plus 5. Now Python has a variable which has a name which is x, it has a value which is 8, and it has a type which is int. If I want to know what is the value of this variable, of course all I have to do is say print x. And if I want to know what is the type of this variable, all I have to do, I will say print type of x. As you can see, Python tells you that it is of class int, which means that its type is an integer. Let's go to our next type, which is the float. What happens when you type the following line in Python? When you say y is equal 3 divided by 2. Again, Python calculates the right side of the equal sign, puts the result in a memory location, associates that location with the identifier y, and since the result is a floating point number, the type of this variable will be float. So Python now has a variable. The identifier for that variable is y. The value of the variable is 1.5 and the type of it is float. Let me try this in Python. So as you can see, the type of variable y is float. Python automatically recognizes the type of variable and associates that with the proper variable. Next, we are going to go to the next type. What happens when you type the following line in Python, which says z is equal to hello? Again, Python calculates the right side, puts the result in a memory location, associates that location with the identifier z, and since the right side is a group of characters. The type of this variable would be str, which stands for a string. Just to repeat that Python now has a variables, the identifier is z, the value of it is hello, and the type of it is str. So what you learned here is that anytime you want to know what is the type of a variable, all you have to do is print type of and put the name of a variable in parentheses and look at the result. Now let's look at the type bool. So what happens when you say z is equal to false? Notice that in Python, true or false are both keywords and they both have capital letters. Make sure that you do not type them as true or false with lowercase letters. Python calculates the right side of the equal sign, puts the result in the memory location, associates that location with the identifier z, and since the result of the right side is a boolean, then the type is bool. Again, we have a variable called z. The value of the variable is false, again with capital F, and the type of the variable is bool. So let me do this here. Also notice that z was previously defined as hello and its type was a string. However, since in this line you said z is equal to false, Python automatically puts the value of false associated with z, so the previous value of z, which was hello, is now gone and its new type would be a bool. And this is automatically done in Python and you don't have to worry about it. So is this it? Is this only 4 types of Python? No, of course not. There are more types such as lists, dictionaries, tuples, and some other types that will be discussed in future lessons.